afternoon. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of The Big Story with Haryanto Diman. I'm Olivia Quay.
And we'll be discussing the new cabinet lineup. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Now, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong announced his new cabinet lineup earlier today. These appointments will take effect from this Monday, July 27th, with a swearing-in ceremony for the cabinet and other office holders at the Istana and Parliament House.
Today's changes comprise promotions for 6 office holders and 7 new political office holders. 3 office holders also retired along with 3 other outgoing ministers. Now, as you can see, there are 10 changes to the core cabinet. They are circled in light blue.
Okay, let's dive deeper into the changes within the core cabinet. Ms. Grace Fu will be appointed Minister for Sustainability and Environment, which will be renamed from the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources.
Mr. Lawrence Wong will be the new Minister for Education, and he'll remain as Second Minister for Finance.
Mr. Masagos Zulkifli will be appointed Minister for Social and Family Development and Second Minister for Health. He remains the Minister in charge of Muslim Affairs.
Mr. Ong Ye Kung will be appointed Minister for Transport, taking over retiring Minister Mr. Khaw Boon Wan.
And Mr. Desmond Lee will be appointed Minister for National Development. He will also be concurrently appointed as Minister in charge of Social Services Integration.
Ms. Indrani Raja will be appointed Second Minister for National Development. She remains Minister in the Prime Minister's Office and as Second Minister for Finance.
New MP Dr Tan See Leng will join Ms. Indrani as Minister in the Prime Minister's Office, in addition to Second Minister for Manpower and Second Minister for Trade and Industry.
Dr Maliki Osman will be promoted to Full Minister. He will be appointed Minister in the Prime Minister's Office as well, Second Minister for Education and Second Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Edwin Tong will also be promoted to Full Minister. He will be appointed Minister for Culture, Community and Youth and Second Minister for Law.
And Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat will take on an additional appointment as Coordinating Minister for Economic Policies. He remains Finance Minister.
Meanwhile, there are also changes, 6 of them, to the slate of Senior Ministers of State. Mr. Zakir Mohammed will be promoted to Senior Minister of State for Manpower and take up an additional appointment at the Ministry of Defence.
Dr Amy Khor will be appointed Senior Minister of State in the Ministry of Transport. She will continue in the Ministry of Sustainability and Environment. Dr
Koh Poh Koon will be appointed Senior Minister of State in the Ministry of Health.
Mr. Chee Hong Tat will be appointed Senior Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Transport.
Dr. Janil Puthucheary will be appointed Senior Minister of State in the Ministry of Health. He will continue in the Ministry of Communications and Information.
Ms. Sim Ann will be appointed Senior Minister of State in the Ministry of National Development. She will continue in the Ministry of Communications and Information. For the changes to the Ministers of State lineup, Ms. Low Yen Ling will be promoted to Minister of State and take up new appointments at the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth and at the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Faisal Ibrahim will be promoted to Minister of State and take up new appointments at the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of National Development.
Ms. Soon Sheh Ling will be promoted to Minister of State and take up new appointments at the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Social and Family Development.
Several new faces introduced in GE 2020 will also be appointed Minister of State. Ms. Gan Xiao Huang will be appointed Minister of State in the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Manpower.
Mr. Alvin Tan will be appointed Minister of State in the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth and the Ministry of Trade and Industry with effect from 1st September.
Mr. Desmond Tan will be appointed Minister of State in the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of Sustainability and Environment.
Mr. Tan Kiat Hao will be appointed Minister of State in the Prime Minister's Office and the Ministry of National Development. He will also be Chairman of the Government's Feedback Unit, REACH.
For the new lineup of Parliamentary Secretary, Mr. Eric Chua will be appointed Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth and the Ministry of Social and Family Development.
Ms. Rahayu Mahzam will be appointed Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Health with effect from 1st September.
Well, PM Lee also expressed his gratitude to the outgoing office holders. Mr. Koh Boon Wan retires as Coordinating Minister for Infrastructure and Minister for Transport.
Mr. Sam Tan retires as Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Social and Family Development, as well as Chairman of the Government's Feedback Unit, REACH.
Dr Tan Woo Meng retires as Senior Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Trade and Industry.
Mr. Ng Chee Meng steps down from his appointment as Minister in the Prime Minister's Office.
And Dr Lam Pin Min steps down as Senior Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Transport.
Mr. Amrin Amin steps down as Senior Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Health. Mr. Ng, Lam, Amrin were part of the PAP slate that lost Sengkang GRC to the Workers' Party.
So Yan, many changes. Let's dissect the key ones with, of course, our news editor at the Straits Times, Zakir Hussain. Zakir, as I mentioned, many changes to keep track of, but what stood out for you?
I think a couple of things. One was the fact that, there was a lot of continuity. So of the entire lineup, you had really five new ministers out of the 15 ministries at the helm. Ms. Grace Fu moved to helm the new Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment, and stepping in at the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth is Mr. Edwin Tong, who was promoted. He is one of three new members of the new full ministers in cabinet, and the other two were Dr. Maliki Osman and Mr. Tan See Leng. So I think Mr. Tan was the highest profile new candidate this time round. He's 55, helmed a large healthcare group, and I think it's no surprise that he's being tapped on for his expertise in manpower and MTI. And I think of the other new ministers, I think you saw a couple, Mr. Masagos is Minister for Social and Family Development. Mr. Desmond Lee steps up as Minister for National Development, although he was all along second minister. But I think the two signal surprises were Mr. Ong Yi Kang as Minister for Transport and Mr. Lawrence Wong as Minister for Education. Yeah,
we can talk more about that later. But Zak, you were saying that, it shows continuity. And comparatively to, the previous cabinet reshuffles, how does this one compare?
I think this one was a bit incremental. So if you look at cabinets after GEs, they tend to be fairly, there tends to be a significant overhaul to give new ministers exposure and promote. For instance, the last cabinet reshuffle, you saw changes at about 11 out of 15 ministries, right? So that was a wide-ranging. And I think as PM mentioned in his press conference, in a crisis, you need steady hands at the helm and so on. So I think it was no surprise that you saw a large number of senior ministers, especially from the 3G, retained, in important portfolios like defense, foreign affairs, home affairs.
Right. Zak, the position of Transport Minister was closely watched since Mr. Kaur announced his retirement before GE 2020.
That's right.
What do you make of Mr. Ong Yi Kang's moving over from the education portfolio?
I think it was a surprise. Transport's been a ministry that was seen as a political hot potato. And I think over the past 2 or 3 transport ministers, Mr. Raymond Lim, Mr. Lee Tak Yew, and I think Mr. Kaur, land transport proved to be such a big issue, right? And I think Mr. Kaur significantly, I think, made huge changes. So land transport is no longer such a, a hot political point almost. But I think as PM alluded, I think it's air and sea transport, especially, with COVID-19, Singapore's relies a lot on being an international air and sea hub, but with the crisis, you see it's, both sectors are quite heavily impacted. Workers have been affected and so on, but there are significant expansion plans down the pipeline. Changi Terminal 5, the expansion of the port, and I think these will still go on track. And I think one key area will be kind of resuming safe travel. And I think PM did mention that this will require quite delicate political hands at the helm, and I think Minister Ong Ye Kung, as a key member of the fourth generation team, is seen as being able to helm these issues. There's also the bilateral rail projects with Malaysia. We have the signing of the RTS agreement next week, as well as discussions on the resumption of the high-speed rail, which have to be completed by the end of this year.
Well, let's talk about who will be replacing Mr. Ong in the Education Ministry. Of course, that's Mr. Lawrence Wong moving over to the Education Ministry from the Ministry of National Development. Previous education ministers include Tharman Shanmugaratnam, Teo Chee Hean and Ng Eng Hen as well. He's an illustrious company, Mr. Wong. So what does it spell for his political future, you think?
Yeah, and I think even before Mr. Ong, DPM Heng was Education Minister.
That's right.
And I think, education's seen as a key ministry, I think. And I think in recent years under Mr. Ong, it's kind of evolved. Your whole skills future, the whole continuing education landscape is parked squarely under the, MOE. And I think it does require a lot of, tact and managing, because it's no longer just about preschool, but, all the way into working life and, reskilling. And I think it's meant, as PM indicated, for exposure. I think Minister Lawrence Wong came in, helmed the ministry a little later than the other 4G ministers, but I think he's proved his mettle, and I think it's seen as giving him exposure. He's also co-chair at the COVID-19 task force, and I think education's been a key part of it in terms of negotiating new arrangements for schools and reopening and even possibility of managing this new normal for some time. And I think it's, Minister Lawrence Wong is probably seen as a potential key member of the fourth generation team and the cabinet, for at least a couple more terms.
Right. Now, we've talked about the movement in terms of the existing office holders.
That's right.
Let's talk about the new faces. The new appointments for those who they rose from GE 2020.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's talk about the appointments of the new MPs like Dr. Tan See Leng, for example. What do you make of those new appointments?
No, I think Dr. Tan has significant private sector exposure, and I think, as PM also indicated, one challenge for the government has been making sure that even as the civil service and public servants remain a steady pool of office holders for them to tap on, there's a need to be exposed to the realities as well as the risk-taking abilities, if you might like it, of the private sector that some of these individuals who come from these backgrounds have. And although, and Dr. Tan See Leng is, I think, a prime example. He successfully managed a large healthcare company, trained as a GP. Yeah. So not, at the same time, he's not unfamiliar with the public sector. And, he's in two key ministries, trade and industry, which will be a key portfolio as, we look at finding new sectors of the economy to tap for growth sources, new agreements and arrangements for global trade. And at Manpower, not just reskilling and finding new areas to tap on, but also managing the coming months will be quite critical for Manpower. You're going to expect layoffs to rise. The need to negotiate with workers as well as tripartite partners is going to grow. And I think it'll be almost plunging Dr. Tan into the pool or the deep end. But it's, that's also what private sector exposure will hopefully help in. And I think you've got a couple of other, you've got several promising high-profile individuals who came in, right? Mr. Alvin Tan, who is still at LinkedIn, he's got private sector experience with social media and digital media. He's going to be at MCCY, where youth engagement will be key, as well as MTI. And Mr. Desmond Tan and Mr. Tan Kiat Hao, right, former top civil servants who will be MOSs in significant ministries as well. And I think not forgetting Ms. Gan Xiao Huang, right, who's she's currently Deputy CEO at the Employment and Employability Institute. It wasn't mentioned, E2I, but presumably she'll have to give that up for these two key posts. But I think her work at MOE, she's at two heavyweight ministries, education and manpower, and I think continuing education, employability skills will probably be a key part of her portfolio in these sectors.
Right. Well, Zakir, in today's cabinet reshuffle, we saw promotions for 6 office holders and 7 new political office holders as well. Do you think that their performance at GE 2020, how much did that factor into these new appointments, or were they already earmarked even before the GE?
I think some of this could have been possibly earmarked, right? When the PAP or government looks at some of these candidates and some of the possible roles they can play, that's a factor. I think the specific performance, how well you do in a constituency, tends to be less of a factor than your ability to contribute. For I think a key reason is I think those are dependent on various circumstances, and I think once they've passed that threshold, really the main benchmark is how well they can contribute and bring their previous experience to bear in their new roles.
Yep. Well, time will tell.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first day of many years of work, of hard work. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Zakir, for coming on the show. We were speaking to news editor Zakir Hussain on PM Lee's new cabinet lineup announced earlier this afternoon.
Now, PM Lee also said that today that Parliament will open on August 24th. Debate in the House will begin a week later from August 31st. PM Lee will speak in the debate and make a major speech to Singaporeans.
And this will replace the annual National Day rally, a key speech where the Prime Minister lays out upcoming plans for the nation. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Olivia Quay with Haryanto Deman and of course Zakir Hussain. See you on Monday on The Big Story.